up, everybody? My name is Logan Strome. Welcome to CTF Strome Talks Football. Apparently, it is New Year's Eve. I completely blanked on it. I completely forgot, but happy New Year's Eve, guys. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys my Week 17 NFL reactions. There was tons of great football this week, and there was also tons of bad football this week. So let's not waste too many time. Let's get started. Alright, so the first game we got here is the Chiefs at the Steelers, and this one was not really all that special. Like, the Chiefs just blew out the Steelers. The Steelers did not look like a contending team. That's all I can say. Let's look at the Steelers here. Russell Wilson was not all that great. 23 for 37, 205 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick. Rushing was led by Najee Harris with 13 carries for 74 yards. And then receiving was led by Pat Freiermuth with 7 receptions, 60 yards, and no score. And looking at the Steelers defense, they did absolutely nothing. They didn't do a single thing. Looking at the Chiefs, Mahomes did pretty good. 29 for 38, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Rushing was absolutely terrible, but it was led by Kareem Hunt, who did have a rushing touchdown. And then receiving was led by Travis Kelce with 8 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown, as well as receiving touchdowns from Xavier Worthy and Justin Watson. And looking at the Chiefs defense, they got a total of 5 sacks and 1 interception on the day. So now with that Chiefs win, they are now the #1 seed, and they will most likely rest their starters next week. Oh boy. Next, we've got the Ravens at the Texans, and man, I said the Texans were frauds last time. I was being way too nice. Like, this team fucking sucks. Like, dude, 2 points? Like, are you serious? I know the Ravens are a better team, but holy crap. Like, looking at the Texans here, C.J. Stroud, once again, underwhelming. 17 for 31, 185 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Should have been 2. Rushing was led by Joe Mixon, which, like, the whole rushing was absolutely terrible, shockingly. And then receiving was led by Nico Collins with 3 receptions, 59 yards. No scores out of anybody. And then looking at the Texans defense, they obviously did nothing other than 1 sack. Like, I'm shocked they even have a sack. Like, a terrible performance by Houston. And then looking at the Ravens here, Lamar played a pretty good game. He didn't have to do much because the Texans basically did it for him. But he had 10 for 15, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Rushing was dominated by Derrick Henry with 27 carries for 147 yards and a touchdown, as well as 4 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown for Lamar. And then looking at receiving, Mark Andrews led with 2 receptions, 68 yards, and a touchdown, as well as a touchdown from Isaiah Likely. And then looking at the Ravens defense, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sacks on C.J. Stroud because their offensive line is atrocious. So yeah, the Ravens dominated the Texans in every conceivable way, and now the Ravens are still like fighting for their division. Like, I have nothing to say about Houston. Like, this is absolutely pathetic. Next game we got was the Thursday night football game where we had the Seahawks at the Bears, and this was just a neat reminder how Thursday night games are supposed to go, because holy crap was this game horrible. Like, there's really nothing much to say here. Like, holy crap, man, this was awful. Looking at the Bears here, Caleb Williams did not do that great. 16 for 28, 122 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Rushing was led by DeAndre Swift with 12 carries for 53 yards. And receiving was led by DJ Moore with 6 receptions, 54 yards. Even though he was leading, he has been pretty bad this season, I will say. Looking at the Bears defense, they had a total of 3 sacks on Geno Smith. Like other than that, like, nothing much. Now looking at Seattle here, Geno Smith did all he could. 17 for 23, 160 yards, no touchdowns, no turnovers. Rushing was led by Zach Charbonnet with 15 carries, 57 yards, no score. Please don't make fun of me for pronouncing that wrong. I just realized I did. And receiving was really bad, but it was led by Noah Fant with 4 receptions, 43 yards. At the Seahawks defense, they had a whopping 7 sacks on the Bears. So yeah, really, it's mostly a defensive showdown. There's really nothing to talk about. This was pretty much a nothing game for Chicago. I mean, it meant something to the Seahawks until it didn't. But yeah, this was a very boring game for sure. What we got was the Chargers at the Patriots on Saturday. I completely forgot this game was on Saturday, as well as 2 others. But yeah, this game did not disappoint for Chargers fans. Like, this was a blowout. Looking at the Patriots, Drake May really did not do all that much. 12 for 22, 117 yards, and a touchdown. Rushing was led by Antonio Gibson with 12 carries, 63 yards. Ramondre Stevenson did not do much at all. And then receiving was pretty underwhelming, but it was led by Demario Douglas with 4 receptions for 46 yards and a touchdown. And then looking at the Patriots defense, they allowed 40 points and they just got bullied around the whole game. They did absolutely nothing. Now looking at the Chargers here, Justin Herbert played a great game. 26 for 38, 281 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. Rushing was led by J.K. Dobbins with 19 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown. And then receiving was led by Ladd McConkey with 8 receptions for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as a receiving touchdown from Darius Davis. And then looking at the Chargers defense, they got a total of 4 sacks on the day. So yeah, great win by the Chargers, and this is what got them into the playoffs. So, like, good job on them. What we got was the Broncos at the Bengals, and this was a fantastic game, man. Like, this was as exciting as advertised. Like, this was a great game to watch. Looking at the Broncos here, Bo Nix did pretty good. 24 for 31, 219 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Rushing was led by Jaleel McLaughlin with 10 carries for 69 yards. And then receiving was led by Marvin Mims Jr. with 8 receptions, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns, as well as Courtland Sutton having 5 receptions for 55 yards and a touchdown. Then the Broncos had a whopping 7 sacks, as well as Zach Allen having 3.5 sacks on the day. What a day for him. Wow. What a day for the defense. And you'll know it's more shocking. They still lost. Looking at the Bengals, Joe Burrow MVP form is a real thing. Like 39 for 49, 412 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers at all. Rushing was led by Chase Brown with 20 carries for 67 yards. Like, I think he's really underrated in my opinion, other than his production not being that great in this game. Joe Burrow did also have a rushing touchdown. Receiving was led by T. Higgins with 11 receptions for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was amazing as well as Jamar Chase having 9 receptions for 102 yards. Like, both receivers were great in this game, especially T. Higgins. And then looking at the Bengals defense, they got a total of 2 sacks and an interception on the day. Great game, great overtime win by the Bengals, and if their cards get played right next week, like, they might find themselves in the playoffs, like, and they might be a dangerous team too. Like this is getting really interesting. Got was the Cardinals at the Rams, and this was an absolute snooze fest, man. Like, this was so boring. Looking at the Cardinals here, Kyler Murray, like, had a pretty okay game, like 33 for 48, 321 yards. Like, that might sound great, but he only had 1 touchdown and 2 picks. Like, that's, I don't know, man. Like, he's been average all year. Rushing was led by Michael Carter with 13 carries for 70 yards. I don't know what happened with James Conner there. Like, what the hell? And then receiving was led by Trey McBride with 12 receptions for 123 yards and a touchdown, as well as Marvin Harrison Jr. getting 9 receptions for 96 yards. And looking at the Cardinals defense, as shocking as it is and how low of a scoring game this was, the Cardinals defense did absolutely nothing. Looking at the Rams here, Matthew Stafford really did not play his best game, like 17 for 32, 189 yards. He missed tons of passes. Rushing was led by Kyren Williams with 13 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown. And receiving was led by Puka Nacua with 10 receptions for 129 yards. No scores out of anybody. And then looking at the Rams defense, they got a total of 4 sacks and 2 interceptions on the day. Yes, very boring game, very boring win, but yep, the Rams won, and that's what needed to happen. They are now 10-6. Next game we got was the Cowboys at the Eagles. Now, hear me out with these, like, Sunday games. Like, other than the afternoon and Sunday night game, I watch those. But these 10 o'clock games, I really did not watch because I was at a family Christmas gathering. So if I say something incredibly stupid, like, just correct me on it. Like, I didn't watch any of these games. I did see a couple clips of this game, and it looked like the Cowboys got dominated. So let's go over it. Looking at the Cowboys here, Cooper Rush really did not look like he played that great of a game. 15 for 28, 147 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. Rushing was led by Rico Dowdle with 23 carries, 104 yards. Like, he's been really underrated now. Like, I feel like I gave him a little bit hard time with the start of the year. And then receiving was led by Brandon Cooks with 4 receptions, 52 yards. But Jalen Tolbert did have a receiving touchdown. And looking at the Cowboys defense, it looks like they really did absolutely nothing just because they got bullied around the whole game. Looking at the Eagles here, like it looks like Kenny Pickett played himself a great game. 10 for 15, 143 yards, a touchdown. Pretty clean for him. And Tanner McKee, must be their third string, was able to get in at the end. He got 54 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, wow, man. Like, the Cowboys getting bullied around by 2 backup quarterbacks. One hasn't even touched the field before. Like, that's hilarious. This is the part I did see, though. Saquon, once again, dominated 31 carries for 167 yards. And he did solidify himself as the 9th rusher in NFL history to hit 2,000 yards. And he's 112 yards away from breaking the record, man. Like, congrats to him. He's been an amazing player. I will say, if he keeps staying healthy for the next couple years, he will solidify himself in the Hall of Fame. Like, even honestly, like, I think he can get in the Hall of Fame if he breaks the record. Like, he's incredible. And then receiving was led by Devonta Smith with 6 receptions, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had himself a day, as well as A.J. Brown having a receiving touchdown as well. And then looking at the Eagles defense, other than holding the Cowboys to only 7 points, they really did not do that much. Like, they got a sack, but they did have 2 interceptions, both by C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So that's all I can say. So yeah, great win by Philly, man. Like, they are now 13-3, and I think they clinched the division with this win. I could be wrong. Again, if I say something stupid, correct me in the comments, but I believe after this game, they won their division. This game we got is the Jets at the Bills, and this looks like another dominating win. Like a lot of these games are blowouts, I can see. Looking at the Jets here, Aaron Rodgers did not do that great. 12 for 18, 112 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. I don't know if he got benched or I don't know if he got hurt, but Tyrod Taylor ended up coming in at the end, and he got 2 touchdowns, something Aaron Rodgers could not do. That's fun. Rushing was absolutely terrible. Breece Hall could not get anything going. And then leading receptions was Garrett Wilson with 7 receptions for 66 yards and a touchdown, as well as Tyler Conklin getting receiving touchdown as well. And then looking at the Jets defense, they did absolutely nothing. They got bullied around. Now looking at the Bills here, Josh Allen, like, honestly did not have to lift a finger. 16 for 27, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mitch Trubisky came in at the end, and he got a passing touchdown as well. Like, Mitch Trubisky receiving passing touchdown in 2024. Hilarious. Rushing was led by James Cook with 15 carries for 53 yards and a touchdown, as well as a rushing touchdown from Josh Allen. And then receiving was led by Tyrell Shavers, whoever that is. 1 reception for 69 yards and a touchdown, as well as a receiving touchdown from the very quiet Amari Cooper and also Keon Coleman. And then looking at the Bills defense, they were able to get 4 sacks and 1 interception on the day. So yep, another dominating win for a very nothing game, and the Bills are now 13-3. Like, they've been really good this season. Like, I'm sorry, there's nothing to say. These games are boring. Next game we got was the Colts at the Giants, and I still don't know what to say about this game, because although this game, like, this loss for the Colts got the Colts eliminated, like, why did the Giants play like this? Like, they had the number 1 pick. Like, now they're all the way down to number 4. The Patriots have the number 1 pick now. Like, what did this accomplish? Looking at the Colts here, Joe Flacco did Joe Flacco things. 26 for 38, 330 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, but 2 picks. Rushing was dominated by Jonathan Taylor. I mean, 32 carries isn't all that great, but for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's pretty good. And then receiving was led by Alec Pierce with 6 receptions for 122 yards and a touchdown, as well as Michael Pittman having 9 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown. And looking at the Colts defense, they did absolutely nothing. Like, they've been atrocious all season. Now looking at the Giants here, Drew Lock ended up playing the best game of his life. Like, what is this? 17 for 23, 309 yards, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. What the hell? Rushing was led by Tyrone Tracy with 20 carries for 59 yards, but Drew Lock did have a rushing touchdown as well. Like, wow. Receiving was dominated by Malik Neighbors with 7 receptions for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as Wan'Dale Robinson having 5 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown, as well as Darius Slayton having a receiving touchdown. I forgot he was on the Giants. And then looking at the Giants defense, they got a total of 2 sacks and a pick on the day. So I guess good win by New York. Like, I just don't know what to say. Like the way the Giants played to like this game just baffles me because like there was no reason to win. Like they had the number one pick in their grasp. Like I don't understand. Next we got the Raiders at the Saints, and wow, are the Saints horrible. And also like the Raiders like, once again like screwing themselves over having a good draft pick. They're getting lower and lower. Looking at the Saints here, Spencer Rattler was not all that great. 20 for 32, 218 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Like, I don't really know what to say about him. Like, a part of me wants to say he can be a great quarterback in the future, but we just never have great coaching, and he just has such a turnover problem, and he misses tons of receivers that are open. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, he's still really young, but, like, I don't know. Rushing was absolutely atrocious. So atrocious that Spencer Rattler was leading rushing with 46 yards. Like, that is horrible. And then receiving was led by Juwan Johnson with 6 receptions for 66 yards, although Foster Minoru did have a receiving touchdown. And looking at the Saints defense, they really did not do anything other than having 1 sack by the legendary Cam Jordan, who did say he wanted to play next year, even though his time might be over, man. Looking at the Raiders here, Aiden O'Connell played himself a pretty good game. 20 for 35, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Rushing was honestly solid for once. Like, it was dominated by Amir Abdullah with 20 carries, 115 yards. Like, that's crazy. And then leading receiving was Brock Bowers with 7 receptions for 77 yards. This is great, too. He broke the record for most receptions by any rookie tight end ever. Like, he broke tons of rookie records for tight ends. Like, he's incredible. But Jacoby Myers did also have a receiving touchdown as well as Trey Tucker. And then looking at the Raiders defense, like they got a total of 4 sacks and 2 picks on the day. So yep, this was a nothing game and this was a nothing outcome other than the Raiders screwing themselves over on a good draft pick. Like there's really nothing else to say. Next game we got was the Dolphins at the Browns, and I did not watch a single highlight of this game. Like all I heard is that the Dolphins won and they could easily make the playoffs, which makes me like laugh hysterically. But like I did not see a single highlight of this game. Like I don't even know what happened. Looking at the Browns here, Robinson did not do that great. 24 for 47. That's actually terrible. 170 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. Like he missed tons of throws. Rushing was absolutely atrocious. Receiving was led by Jerry Jeudy with 12 receptions for 94 yards. Like he's been pretty underrated, I will say. Looking at the Browns defense, they got a total of 4 sacks, 2 of them being from Myles Garrett. So at least they have him still. Now looking at the Dolphins here, Tyler Huntley got the start and he did pretty good. 22 for 26, 225 yards and a touchdown, no turnovers. Rushing was led by also Tyler Huntley with 7 carries for 52 yards and a touchdown. Devon Achane shockingly did terrible. And then receiving was led by Tyreek Hill with 9 receptions for 105 yards. Like, man, he's been terrible this season, but at least he got a good game today. Looking at the Dolphins defense, they were only able to get 1 sack and 1 interception on the day. Good win by Miami, and if they play their cards right, they might end up in the playoffs too. Like, how crazy is that? Game we got was the Packers at the Vikings. This was a really good game, but at the same time, I feel like I've been underrating the Vikings too much this whole season because, man, this team is fantastic. Before we talk about the Vikings here, let's go over the Packers. Jordan Love did not play that good of a game. 19 for 30, 185 yards, 1 touchdown, no turnovers. Rushing was led by Josh Jacobs with 17 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. Receiving was pretty dull, but it was led by Romeo Doubs leading with 7 receptions for 58 yards. And then looking at the Packers defense, they were only able to get 2 sacks on the day. Looking at the Vikings here, Sam Darnold played a great game, 33 for 43, 377 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Rushing was not all that great, but honestly, it's been mostly their passing game this game. Like, rushing was not really a huge factor. Receptions was led by Justin Jefferson with 8 receptions for 92 yards. Then also Jalen Naylor and Jordan Addison and Cam Akers all had receiving touchdowns. Looking at the Vikings defense, they were able to get 3 sacks on the day. Honestly, I feel like I've been underrating the Vikings defense as well. They are the best defense in football, not the Steelers. I think the Vikings have the best defense in football right now. Like, they are elite. Yeah, good win by the Vikings, and they are 14-2, and yet at the bottom of their division. That has never happened before. Like, how crazy is that? Next game we got was the Sunday night game with the Falcons at the Commanders, and this was shockingly a great game. Like, I thought the Falcons were going to get bullied around the whole time, but this actually was a competitive game. Like, this was really fun to watch. Looking at the Falcons here, Michael Penix did not play his best game, but I'll give him a slide just because it's his first 2 games in the NFL. Like, give him a break. Like 19 for 35, 223 yards, 1 touchdown and a pick. Rushing was led by Bijan with 17 carries for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then receiving was led by Drake London with 7 receptions for 106 yards and no score, but Kyle Pitts did have a receiving touchdown. And then looking at the Falcons defense, they were able to get 4 sacks and an interception on the day. Looking at the Commanders here, Jaden Daniels played himself a pretty good game, 24 for 36, 227 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Am I reading this right? Rushing was led by Jaden Daniels with 16 carries for 127 yards. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I know he was great, in rushing, like, when I watched, but, like, holy shit. And then, and also, Chris Rodriguez did have a rushing touchdown. Like, I'm shocked. I didn't know he did that great. And then receiving was led by Olamide Zaccheaus with 8 receptions for 85 yards and a touchdown, but Zach Ertz did have 2 receiving touchdowns. He was great. And looking at the Commanders' defense, they were able to get 2 sacks and an interception on the day. So great overtime win by the Commanders. They are now in the playoffs, as well as the Rams made it in the playoffs because of this win. Great game by the Commanders, and wow, like, at least this playoff run's going to be believable, unlike the 2021. Like, the Commanders are a great team, man. Like, I'd watch out for them. And finally, the last game we got was Monday Night Football, which we had the Lions at the Niners. Like, this game completely shocked me. Like, I thought the Niners were going to get bullied around all game, but they actually came to compete. And, like, all I have to say is, where the hell was this all season? Like, where was this, man? Like, the Niners needed this, like, 6 weeks ago. Now, looking at the Niners here, Brock Purdy did not play his best game. 27 for 35, 377 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. I mean, if it wasn't for his interceptions, he'd be playing a good game. But, like, I gotta say, like, this whole season, he's been incredibly mid. Like, I know he's a good quarterback, but he just did not have a great season. Rushing was led by Isaac Arendo, but overall, like, rushing was terrible, other than having rushing touchdowns by both Brock Purdy and Joshua Dobbs. And then receiving was led by Ricky Pearsall with 8 receptions for 141 yards and a touchdown. Like, that's awesome to see. George Kittle also having 8 receptions for 112 yards, as well as having receiving touchdowns from both Kyle Juszczyk and Debo, although Debo's stats are awful. And looking at the Niners defense, they only had 2 sacks, and both of those sacks came from Nick Bosa. Like, other than that, they did nothing. Now, looking at the Lions here, Jared Goff played himself a pretty good game. 26 for 34, 303 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. Rushing was dominated by Jahmyr Gibbs with 18 carries for 117 yards and a touchdown, as well as Jameson Williams having a rushing touchdown. And then receiving was led by Jameson Williams with 5 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown, as well as receiving touchdowns from both Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Then looking at the Lions defense, they were able to get 2 sacks and 2 interceptions, both interceptions from Kirby Joseph. Like, he played a great game. Also, one more thing before I just end it off right here. Jake Moody's got to go, man. Like, 2 missed field goals and a missed PAT. Also kicking his onside kick out of bounds. Like, this is just the definition of him having a terrible season this season. And also that so far having a terrible career. Like, he was overrated from the start. Like, he has been terrible. He's one of the worst kickers in football. Like, the Niners, like, bro, they have to get rid of him. Like, he's awful. So, yeah, great win by Detroit. They are also 14-2. They are still on the top of their division, and they will face the Vikings, who are also 14-2 for the division. That's going to be an absolute showdown. And the Niners, well, better luck next year. And there you guys have it. Those were my Week 17 NFL reactions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments on how you think your teams could improve next season if you guys are eliminated, or how you think these games are going to go next week. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, turn on notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos whenever I post. Have a great New Year's Eve. I'll see you guys in 2025. Stay safe. I'll see you guys next year.